Oh, I don't like it
Got
when
it.
it does that.
Mm.
Well, hello everyone.
Star Trek.
This is our June meeting for the Evolving Musicians Network. I'll introduce us because yeah, there are people that aren't necessarily here. Um, yeah, it's nice to meet with you guys. As we know, these meetings kind of are original and unique in themselves because of the collection of people that choose to attend each one of them. I think there's a lot of valuable things that we can pull from each other. I know each of you personally in some capacity, and I do know that there are some kind of exciting things that are happening in your guys' musical pathways. So I'm going to quickly say introduce myself, and then we'll go through the list of everyone. So for those of you who don't know me or don't know what I'm doing here, my name's Emma, and I am a musician, and I've been teaching for the past 6 years, and I'm currently taking a step away to focus on my musical projects, which are definitely like vocally focused. I'm working on original music that I'm kind of in a mix because I have this really strong desire to jump into all of the electronic equipment that I have, getting into digital stuff, but I am an analog musician. I absolutely choose to play my baby grand more than anything else. I do perform a lot, and I know that some of us are getting into performing as well in certain capacities. I've been recently checking out some new open mic nights, which I'm excited to share the details about when they come about. I'll post them to our group page. They are local here in Oxfordshire, and they were really engaging. And it was nice to be able to go out and make music in front of my peers. It felt nice to kind of feel that way again. Yeah, so that's who I am. That's what I'm doing. I'm going to pass the torch over. Let's just go right down my list. I have Christian next. So, hi, introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everybody, and thanks Emma for inviting me along tonight. I would say I'm a musician, but I'm a drummer, so I don't know whether whether I'm welcome or not really. But I
Oh,
guess
definitely.
if nothing else, I keep everybody else in time, or at least I try to. But yeah, I live in Bicester. Recently recorded an album up at Tad Studios, and very kindly Emma had us as part of the Bicester Festival last year, with one of the first kind of ventures into performing online, which is very, very different, of course, to performing in front of real live human beings. Emma invited me along today just to give you guys a bit of an update in terms of the band, the project, what's happening. Uh, I guess some of our experience in terms of the recording process, and the great opportunity to support a local business in that area, because that's one thing that as a band you've quite often have to travel quite far and wide to get to good quality facilities, and we're quite blessed to have that right on our doorsteps here.
Cool. Well, thank you for coming. I'm glad that you've come in. Again, I think that one of the best parts about being a musician is being able to connect with other people. And it's this place where we all get to come together, no matter what our backgrounds are. And I think that any person who has a passion for music is a musician. Now, sometimes I would even say that certain listeners are musicians. I have a friend who does not play an instrument, does not sing, doesn't do anything. He's an amazing listener, and I would definitely say he has a very musical ear. And to kind of get the feedback again from peers to kind of know, where do I fit, where do I belong, what do you guys think of this project that I'm doing on in a safe environment that's not like a review forum,
Mm.
something that people can like critique in a constructive, very safe way. Yeah, so very much welcome.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Um, Michael, why don't you
Hey.
go next?
Yeah, sure. Well, I just do standard intro really, even though some people on here have probably heard it quite a few times now. So I did music technology as a degree. And I ended up after that working for Focusrite audio engineering up in High Wycombe, and that for about a decade, and then I took a break from that, and now I'm back there again.
No, you're okay. Keep going. Sorry.
Oh, okay, it's cool.
To move away, so yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, I thought it was a problem. Okay, yeah. So now I'm working for Focusrite again, and I'm actually sort of working with their software and firmware teams that build synthesizers and keyboard controllers like this one as well. So that's kind of like how my sort of day job is affected by doing, I guess, related to the music stuff. But then I do all sorts of bits and bobs myself. I've been in bands, and I've done, at the moment, I'm just working by myself pretty much. Tried to start a band before lockdown that sort of fizzled out, and then lockdown happened. So I've ended up I just write songs, and I like music production. I like to experiment a little bit with how professional I can try and get an idea and see just how far I can take it with my skill level. And I guess I'm always trying to get to that next bit where I'm trying to get that next song to a little bit closer to something that people could sort of maybe, I don't know what the oral equivalent of squinting is, but they wouldn't be able to really tell that it wasn't a major label release. That is ultimately the dream, to be able to produce music that in my head sounds that good, and I can somehow make it happen, and people go, "Oh, that's you, is it? Oh, I wouldn't have guessed." That's kind of the dream, really. So yeah, and this group's been great. This has been like a reason to get up and actually do something creative, is that there are people who I know do the same sorts of things, and I can talk to them about it and compare notes, and just have something to go, oh yeah, there's a meeting soon, I better make sure that I actually do something instead of sitting around and staring at the guitar. Anyway, that's me, more or less, I think. Oh, and Emma used to teach me singing. So without her, I don't think I would have done an awful lot of stuff this year. And yeah, that's it's been quite influential.
I think that you are so right, and that's why I continue to do these, because I think that especially for those of us doing these independent projects or even with groups, it's really hard to connect to people, especially right now, because we haven't had gigs to go out to. And even then, I mean, I'm working with this group of people to kind of rejig the network in Oxfordshire, because it's like, you do a gig with this person, this promoter, and you see like the same couple of people, and you're not really, again, meeting with people that you can have these conversations with to, yeah, I don't know. So it's great that we can be in this capacity, and yeah, I'm so happy to bring you all together, and hopefully, like I said, we can bring other people into this game, and yeah, because it does impact. I know from having taught and experienced all of these projects with other musicians how that impacts my music, whether or not they are like at my trained level. That's completely irrelevant, because it's their emotion, it's their commitment, it's their want to learn something, it's that passion that's there. So yeah, I'm excited, and I'm excited to hear, because I know both Michael and Christian have like new projects that they've just released stuff with. So that's really cool. Let's go down my line. We've got Martin.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I used to kind of play music like everybody when I was kind of still at school, badly, very badly, and then kind of gave up as kind of life took over. Then started getting interested again about 5 years ago. Joined a group in Banbury for more mature musicians, and well, in age at least. And started taking singing lessons with Emma, and since then I've kind of started writing songs again. I do some stuff on my own, kind of, which is sort of like acoustic folky kind of stuff, and then with some other guys from the Banbury group, we have a band that play as well, that's got a slightly unusual lineup in being a six-piece, with drums, bass, keyboard, guitar, and violin, which is kind of quite an unusual mix, but works, I think, quite well. You might see later. You've gone very quiet, Emma.
I know, sorry, it's because um, I'm typing some things as I do, like listen. So I've tried to turn my mic off so you can't hear that. Yeah, cool. Last one we have here is David. So take it away.
Take it away, right? Hi, yes. Well, I came to the music party pretty late in life, but never too late. And hopefully, I've got a few years in front of me. So, I mean, I've been playing keyboard. I've had singing lessons with Emma, and she's sort of really now going to her really just for more musical mentoring, I would say. I think she's given up on my singing, but no. And again, like Martin, joined Rusty's in Bicester, and we've got a little band now that's really spun out of it, partly due to COVID, partly due to, or mainly due to COVID, I would say. So we play every week in Dunstew Village Hall, which is just such good fun. I get so much fun out of it. The just it is a passion. The passion of, I mean, meeting people. We currently we've got a sort of set list which we run through. We stop for tea, which is just even more fun, and we just have a good natter. Someone bakes a cake. And in fact, as well, just recently I've been teaming up with a very good friend of mine who come back to the guitar, and he plays a bit of piano, and we've been spending 2 to 3 hour sessions just playing 12-bar blues together, which has just been an absolute hoot. It's such good fun that we forgot lunch one day. we were just carried away like little kids, and I mean, it's just this. To explain it to anyone who's not into music is very difficult. How can you play, effectively 3 chords for 2.5 to 3 hours and feel like you're an absolute, you're really buzzing. It's like a little kid just having found, some new, just new thing. And it's so good. And we've been doing this now for 4, 5 or 6 weeks now. And we think, oh, shall we do anything different? And we go, no, let's not. Let's just do the same thing. And we add different, bass lines and, this, that, and the other to it. The feeling of sort of, the relationship, and you just know what the other guy's going to do, and so I've been doing that as well. And what I love about the whole thing is that it's infinite, and we can do what we want to do. And if I feel like going and recording something or writing something, I can do it. And this is what I love about the whole thing. And obviously meeting other people who are just as passionate but have totally different ways of carrying out their passion, as it were. And I find that so interesting. I mean, like, for example, Domi with her what do you call it, loop pedals and all that sort of thing. I find that so interesting and clever, and just it appeals to my technical mind. And it's just it's just another thing which I would like to get involved in, but there are so many things you can do in this music game. You have to choose one, I'm afraid, or not one, but some to take a time. So that's me, really. But as I say, I think currently the highlights of the week are playing at Dunstew and playing at this other chap's house for 2 or 3 hours, just mucking around, really. But being quite serious, we'd have a backing track and we just play it endlessly, So that's me, really, at the moment. Could all change next week, of course. But hey.
The neat thing about what David does is, because he's not like working, I mean, he's working on a couple of different projects, but he's not like working on an album with a band, that sort of stuff. And so he can just kind of pick up and try new things. And I have watched him over the past couple of years literally do just that. Like, I really want to learn 12-bar blues. I really want to learn how to play boogie woogie. I really want to learn how to play this, and I want to sing that, and I want to pick up this instrument. And actually, what I love about music, again, I've already said this, it brings people from all sorts of backgrounds. And David comes from like a very a pragmatic, practical kind of lifestyle, and coming into this sort of creative process, well, that might be a little bit challenging in the more artistic-y, expressive ways. But when it comes to the practicality of learning the mechanics of how to play an instrument, or the mechanics of understanding digital equipment, that sort of stuff. We've got someone coming in. That you have that mindset already, which is amazing because I don't really. I've been more of that, like, we're artsy fartsy, we're going to express ourselves when it comes to songwriting and melody making, that sort of stuff. Perfect. Just sitting and playing, yes. But when I have to sit and learn how a digital program, nah, no, 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 no. I give up. So, yeah, I feel you there. Deb, hi, welcome. We've kind of just gone through introductions. You've like literally been at the perfect time. So go ahead and tell us who you are and what you do.
Oh, my battery's about to die, I think.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's not charging. Spain isn't good for charging phones, or anything for that matter.
Oh no.
So yeah, hi, I'm Deb James, founder of Global Songwriters Network and Judd Friedman songwriting workshops and Judd Friedman studio sessions and anything to do with helping songwriters, basically trying to workshops and networking, facilitating, that kind of stuff.
You guys have a network. I mean, not a network. Sorry. You guys have a songwriting workshop coming up soon, right?
Yeah, in July the 10th, a couple of weeks, I think it is, coming up soon.
Well, what I'm gonna do, I will chat with you. If you can post the link in the group page, we can share it with everyone because as someone who has gone to two of them and plans to go to more, they are really engaging. It essentially kind of taught me the importance of us doing exactly this: networking, talking to each other, taking each other's best strengths and combining them in places that we can, and just using each other, you know? Yeah, cool.
And I'd like oh, sorry, you're still speaking.
No,
Sorry.
go ahead. No, you go
I
ahead.
was going to say I'd like to offer your group like a discount as well because I know you and think you're great.
Well, holla. That's power of networking, guys.
Really.
Yeah, we'll definitely post that in the group so that the people who weren't here as well can kind of see this. Because I wholeheartedly think that these are really great. Judd Friedman was really great to work with. And again, the people that I met there really impacted my music, and they're people that I respect and I can exchange ideas with in the same way that we're doing here. And it will just open that pool up for you so much more in terms of the possibilities of what your music can do. Yeah, speaking of, well, actually, Deb, because your phone may die, is there anything else that you kind of want to say or share with the group this evening?
Do you want to prompt me on what you'd like me to say about what, in anything in particular?
Not necessarily. I just, I want to encourage anyone to join who can. I love the fact that you were able to come here. Actually, maybe if you could, do you want to explain a little bit about the workshop that's coming up and how people can get involved?
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically it's well, Emma came to the one in Italy, and it's the only workshop, the real one, back in the day when everything was normal, that we actually, Judd, you'll see the link on Emma's group. He's quite successful. He's been successful for a long time. He's still signed to Warner Chappell. I think he's been signed for like decades, and also Peer Music. So he's also a lawyer and all that kind of stuff. So he knows the music business, and he knows how to break through and how to stay there for a long, long time, and how to make money. But basically it comes down to hit songs, and then once you've got a hit song, to get it out there and how to get it out there, etc. How to approach people, what's important and what's not important in today's real world of the digital world and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, he knows his stuff. So they actually the courses now online are doing the same thing. So we have a lot of people who actually meet up and collaborate with each other, with Judd kind of in the room with you, like looking over your shoulder. But before that, you learn the basics of a commercial song, whatever genre it is, because there is, oh God, all these things are popping up on my phone. There's like, how can I put it? there's certain things that make songs stand out from everybody else's songs, and there's obviously millions of songwriters around the world, and there's millions of songs written, and they're all kind of evolved from songs from way back. So you have to have something that kind of stands out from everybody else, or something kind of unique or different. Like Emma is amazing because her voice is unique, and the song that I heard her write is unique. It's incredible. So he teaches you that kind of thing, how to stand out amongst the millions basically that are out there. And I'm a little bit biased, but I've been around quite a while, and I've listened to lots of teachers and songwriters, and he's very very good at what he does. He's very thorough and helpful, and he really does pass on all his knowledge. And it's a lot of fun, and you get to meet other songwriters. What they do is they go into breakout rooms on the course. So there'll be 2 or 3 or 4 of you in a breakout room after you've learned the basics, or even from really experienced songwriters. It helps everyone. Then he comes into the room and helps you write the song. Basically, you're writing with him, and it just evolves like that. And we've had some great songs come out of the workshops, as we did in the real workshop in Italy. Yeah, quite a lot of success with that. So yeah, it's I mean, if you've got any questions, it's hard to think off the top of your head, because I'm not Judd. I just put it all together and sell it for him. But if he was here, would he be able to explain better? But if you want to ask any questions, then you know, I could definitely answer them for you if you want to know anything specific about what we do.
The last question I have really is, what kind of person is going to benefit from something like this?
Right. So, okay. All age from 16 to 100. And because you can be a songwriter when you're 100, if you're fit and healthy, obviously, you know what I mean? You can be a songwriter at any age and have success at any age. You don't have to look great, or, you know, you can be a songwriter and be successful. And there's different outlets. There's gaming, there's sync, there's so much. She's writing for other artists, you know, pop, every genre. There's lots of opportunities, a lot more opportunities as a singer or songwriter too, or just a songwriter. So we've had people, I'll just give you one example. There's a lady called Frankie, and she's 70 something, and she was a poet, and she's been to 3 of these workshops, the online ones, a couple of hour masterclasses and 1 course. And she was a poet, and she'd gone through a bit of a difficult time. And someone said to her, why don't you write songs? So she doesn't play any instruments. She sings, but she doesn't play any instruments. When she first joined, she was super nervous, because she's like, I'm just a lyricist. I'm not even a lyricist, I'm a poet. And she just released an EP, and she's getting lots of press. She's been in local newspapers, and she did a charity single, and she's doing really, really well. So it's for anyone, even if you just write poetry. And then other people who are, you know, talented musicians, and there's so many out there that are talented musicians, are like, I can't believe the difference in my songwriting. Just that, you know, little hints and tips here, and just that little thing that makes a difference. And they're also doing really well. Bernarda had one of our songs shortlisted for Eurovision. Oh, wow. And one of the songs is now that we wrote at the on the course is now signed to Warner Chappell, just 1 song deal. And we released another one not that long ago, and it's doing, I think it did like 40,000 streams in a few weeks. Because we also do the promotion and help and advice and put stuff out there too. And it's fun. I mean, as you know, Emma, Judd's not like teacher. He's quite laid back, and it's always fun. He's always positive as well, positive and constructive. So you never feel like you're being put down. You always feel like he's just lifting you up. You know, it's always very encouraging. So yeah, all ages, and you get any skill level too, and any age. It's for everybody. And what you tend to find is that if someone's very experienced, you know, you kind of have a group of people that you learn. You said you learn off each other. Everyone brings something to the table, and it brings out your confidence. Because for me, I didn't write much, and then I met all these amazing people, like Emma said, and they're like, I might just say one line, and they're like, that's great. And you're like, oh, okay. And then you've written a song, and then you start writing more songs. You say, oh, actually, yeah, I can do this, and I'm not bad. I'm good at doing that little hook, or I'm good at doing that chorus, and somebody else might be good at doing a verse or a bridge or melody, chorus. There's so many elements to write in. So yeah, it's good fun. So
One of the best things that taught me is that I don't have to do everything myself.
yes, exactly.
Like, actually, Christian was saying, because he's a drummer in his band, and he was like, I don't know how much of a musician I am. Actually, drumming is the one thing that I really, really, really cannot manage. Even when I have things on a loop, I'm like, this is really boring. And that technical skill does bring so much into something that I don't have. And it's something that I need in my music. And so to learn about, I mean, in fact, I'm working with a drummer right now. We're working on like some acoustic stuff together, because she plays a bit of like stringed stuff, guitar and stuff, really kind of basic, but she's a drummer and she's really good. And so we set her up on an octopad, and it's like, okay, cool. You're literally doing the things that I can't right now. Now we have a band. Sick. Yeah, so Deb is going to share these details with our group. I definitely recommend 11 out of 10 because of the even just the networking, the experience that you have, and working with somebody in the prospect of collaboration, of understanding what it is to create a song with another person. Because I know for a fact that people in this group have been doing that, have done that successfully or unsuccessfully, and everywhere in between. And how do we continue to do that? What are new ways to do it? And I think that this workshop is a perfect way to do that.
When's the workshop?
Collaborators too, you meet people on the course that you collaborate with after the course and become friends, and you write with. I mean, that happens all the time. Yeah. Everyone meets someone that they click with, or more than one, probably several, and they carry on writing. That's happened to me, and most of the people that have done the courses, you meet the people you can carry on collaborating with after, which is good.
Yeah. You said the course is July 10th?
July 10th, yeah.
Perfect.
Starts July 10th.
It's online?
It's online, yeah. Yeah, 6 weeks online. It's on a Saturday morning from, LA time, 10 till 12. So I don't know what that is in the UK. I think it's 6.
2 o'clock in the afternoon, isn't it?
I think
maybe later.
3 to 7. Ooh,
3, that makes sense.
6.
I'm not sure. It's 10 a.m. LA time. I think.
It says 6 to 8 on your flyer.
Okay.
And it's a couple of hours, and then you get to have projects to do in between. And there's also Facebook Messenger group where Judd's on there and I'm on there, and all the other attendees are on there, so we use that all through the week to if you want to ask Judd something or send something or whatever, and also talk to each other. It's we have the Messenger group to keep in touch, and also the video. Every class is also recorded, and then it's reposted, so you won't miss anything.
Cool. That's like actually a little bit more engaging of a project, more focused and much more like densely compact than what we do here. I like that. Because you'll have a project and you'll have something at the end of it, which is nice. Yeah, I don't want to put the pressure on it, but yeah. Does anyone have any questions for Deb at all?
Yeah, sorry.
No, you crack on. I need to faff that with this mic for a second because my computer wants to break it.
I'm interested. Just really a question about songwriting, because I hear it all the time now. And you sort of alluded to it as well, is that songs are written, as I understand it now, so certainly the so-called hit songs, by a number of people to write one song. What's the word? I find it interesting that that is how it's evolves to do that. And you were saying, of course, there are some people better at writing, say, a chorus or some little hook or whatever. How do you do you think that really is the way? I mean, you're sort of saying, well, you work in a group of four, and you might find one of you is better at this or that or whatever. But I personally quite like just sort of working on my own. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no. I mean, it depends what your goals are. I mean, in the commercial business sense, like if you look at any of the charts in any chart, any genre, there's more than, unless you're Diane Warren, I don't think there's anyone that writes a song on their own, because people, even producers as well, producers bring a big part to the table. Obviously, you get a really good producer can make a song, sound completely different. So it just depends on your goal. I mean, from a business sense, well, even from a fun sense, it's really fun to write with collaborators that you get on with. It doesn't always happen that way. Sometimes you don't click. Most of the time you do, because you've got the same goal, and you're musicians and you love music, but yeah, it's just it's like anything, teamwork makes the dream work, basically. There's a lot of people that like to write on their own, and that's, I mean, the first couple of songs that I wrote on my own completely, and they were okay. And then I got involved with a producer in LA, just a young lad, not well known. He's quite well known now. And the difference was, and I was like, oh my God, wow. So, just bringing skills just improves anything. It works with anything, really, like anything that you do. If there's someone who's got a certain skill and they can bring that to the table, it always improves anything, not just songwriting. But you can, there's no rules. You can write on your own if you want.
But I mean, I'm not arguing for the sake of an argument, but I'm just, for example, if you take, is this statement correct that Elton John really only wrote with Bernie Taupin, for example, or do you think, let's say 20 or 30 years ago, he had a lot of input from other people?
I think with Bernie Taupin and Elton John, I mean, for sure, Bernie Taupin and Elton John would definitely work with other people, but they just found a magic and chemistry that really worked, so they stuck with it. It's like Guy Chambers and Robbie Williams. They have that. Guy Chambers writes and still writes for hundreds of people, and they had that chemistry, and they wrote some great hits. So yeah, it's definitely seems to work. And most of the I mean, if you look at the songs in the charts, and even going way back, Lennon and McCartney, right? You can't get any better than that songwriting team, and the others also were part of it. So this just gives it that like a marriage even that works. There's that.
I mean, do you think as well that perhaps it's because it's more technical now? Certainly, and the sound production is different. I mean, I don't know, let's say, 20, 30 years ago, okay, Elton John had a piano, and you may have, obviously had some drums coming in and guitar on occasions, but there wasn't the technical array of armory that you could use, and would need to be, and you need to be proficient at every one, and also know how to write for it. Maybe, I don't know. Do you think it's the horse before the cart, or do you think it's the fact that technically you need so many more skills now, as well as what we've already discussed?
Well, a lot of these like tracks you're talking about, they were like recorded with sound engineers, so that's a totally different position. That's like you and I collaborating and making this really great partnership and writing a bunch of music. And when we've written it, we take it to Michael. Now, Michael is a process within that, but I mean, and he might have something to say. Usually the producer, the music producer versus the sound engineer we'll have edits within, but that's, that's instrumental, that could be melodic and stuff. But the basis of writing something, just the general bones of things, the things that, like, actually, the version of my song that you guys have heard, this more basic stripped down thing, that process, where that came from, that happens in this kind of, for us it was an organic environment in a non-organic situation, within the songwriting workshop that we had with Judd Friedman.
Say as well, like, the thing which the technology comes up in these chats so often, the fact that you can do it yourself now with the tools means that you don't need Abbey Road to do it for you. And that is often then you kind of, the cart before the horse, in my opinion, if my opinion is worth much, and even if it isn't, it's still my opinion. One is in danger of conflating, like, okay, I have to be multi-skilled in order to be a musician and get my stuff out there. With this idea that that's kind of the, not expressing this very well, let me try again. There's a danger of kind of putting things the wrong around and going, there are all these technological barriers in the way of me releasing music. But in 1962, the main barrier was Decca Records and all of its machinations. And now, because you can do it at home, there's a tendency to say, okay, I need to be good at all this technology in order to be a musician, because that's what they're all doing now. They're all self-producing. But back in the day, it was infinitely harder to get a product out. It was so, I mean, just millions and millions and millions of pounds was required just to get the basics in. And then, that all of that was held by, the power over that was held by a tiny proportion of people. Lucky that the Beatles even got a deal. I mean, they did. They
got turned down a few times.
They did, many times, exactly. It's just like, oh yeah, I think beat groups are on the way out, So yeah, I think technology can be daunting for people, but I think that it's wrong to see it as it is a barrier, but it is much less of a barrier than things used to be. It's a democratization, I think. But it's so easy to get bogged down in this idea that I have to be good at technology to release stuff.
No, I don't think so.
No. You need people who can do it, but it's a networking thing, like you were saying, Debbie. It's kind of knowing the right people and being able to employ skills as a team is still as applicable now, I think.
Yeah. I think, the industry has changed so much, hasn't it? If you go back to the 60s, basically, when you were making a record, initially what you were thinking about is just getting a band in or a singer in and recording a performance there and then. And, the whole idea of multi-tracking was still to dawn. And that kind of gradually evolved. But it was all just kind of that much simpler.
Organic.
But the way people consumed music was very different, wasn't it? Because you would be thinking about going to see your band at your local club, at your local theatre, and the thousands of venues that just don't exist anymore. And now there's a lot more music, but it's it's that thing Bowie said, isn't it, about it's just being there on tap. So it's just a different industry. So I think you can't really compare. You're not comparing like with like. The world has moved on.
Yeah. Wish it was back to just recording in real time with a band.
Wax cylinders.
A lot of bands like to do that. Oh, do you remember Wax Cylinders? You get that really sort of warm timbre from the wax, didn't you? Lovely mid-range boost.
78.
Yeah.
But one thing that was pointed out, Christian was saying this. Him and his band recorded at a local place, and it's a local place that we're all kind of relatively familiar with, except for Deb, unless you've watched some of the live streams that I've done at all. But it's studios, and I was with a student. I did this kind of studio session assistance. They were recording the vocals, and I was there to kind of like help coach them through the bit, because there was a sound engineer there recording everything in his studio. Now he's just like doing the takes. He's not the person that's like, you need to sing that a bit higher. They were just like, oh shit, which one of these takes can I actually use at the end of this? And so that's what I was there to do. And it is really great because this person, it's not quite Tad Studios, because Tad Studios have organized it in a way that they can offer these services to more of us. This is just somebody knew someone who had a recording studio in their house, and we were there, and just the knowledge of partnering up with people. This guy hasn't been working on many projects, and this is what he really likes to do. He wants to do this kind of stuff, and there he's helping connect a collaboration that like half of it's here, half of it's in LA right now. Actually, they might have a third in Kenya or something, but like it is quite spread out, and he's able to help him create good stems to be sent out to be mixed in and produced and everything, that Abbey Road effect. And in fact, strangely enough, so last year, right before lockdown happened, I went to AVA Festival. And it is a kind of like music production festival. And it was at Printworks in London, and it was the coolest thing ever. And I ended up sitting into a little like conversation workshop from the dudes at Abbey Road, and they were saying like, listen, it's just the equipment. I mean, like, we have the ears to know certain things, and we know what to use because that's what we do. We don't play these instruments, but we know how they need to sound. And one of them prefers Logic, the other one prefers Pro Tools. So there was like a little debate in the audience. They're like, what do you guys use? And, well, we all have access to it, you know, it's just in the user and how it works. Now, I know I'm utterly garbage at those. I barely use Ableton because it's the DAW that I have to use for my Rolly plugin. But I could use the others. And so when I need to do recording, I'm like, yo, Michael, what's up? Can you help me? Which, by the way, as we're still gonna do this.
Yeah, we are going to do it.
Yeah. Um, yeah, speaking of, I would like to kind of jump into some of these projects. Christian, because you're new to the group, why don't you, if you have something that you'd like to share, I'll enable screen share. That was really tough to say. I will enable my screen sharing so that you can share sound with us or whatever.
Excellent, yeah, thank you. Yeah, so it's been really interesting actually listening to the perspective of the group, because I perhaps approach it from a slightly different angle, because I've become a bit of a well, I won't say musician for hire, because that bigs me up way more than I actually am. But you know, I can count to 4 and hit things, so I have my uses. But it's quite interesting. You know, we're talking about how technology has evolved, perhaps the songwriting process. I go back to bands when I was a lot younger. It would be 4 guys in a school classroom, effectively having a bit of a jam, and something organic would kind of grow out of that. Compared to where we are today, where for the project that I've played on for Steve Winton Inception, he's done all the demo at home himself. You know, he uses, it's either Logic or Pro Tools, whichever one it is, and he kind of comes to us with here's a project that's, you know, there or thereabouts. But what he really asked then us to do, like the rest of the band, in terms of, you know, the rest of the musicians, is to go, that's my general direction, but I want you to put your personality on there as well. So he will have a basic drum track that gives him the feel for the song, for how he wants it to go. But then he's always, you know, we've got a good relationship, thankfully, and he's always said to me over the years, but I'm not a drummer, so I want you to listen to this and put your stamp on it, your personality on it. And in a couple of cases, if we listen to perhaps what's the final output in terms of, you know, what we've laid down on the final track compared to the original demo, it does evolve and it does change, because you do get those influences from the bass player going, well, actually, but I think it should go a bit more like this, and why don't we try it this way? And, you know, the other guitarist will put something else on top, and then me as a drummer will go, I don't feel it that way, but I feel it this way. And sometimes it works, and it's like fantastic. You know, it just helps elevate it together. But the core that's there is what Steve's written. So coming back to what David was saying around writing stuff as an individual, that's very much what Steve does. He's written, hundreds of songs, I think, over the years, but only ever done it himself. And whilst he's released, a couple of albums and things like that, his music's definitely evolved by being with other musicians, but he's not actually written with other people. And maybe that's something that I think will probably benefit him in some ways, is to get that input from others with a different lens and a different view to help kind of take the song to a different way. But certainly the musicians that are involved in pulling the project together definitely can have a bit of an influence in the final output, the final sound. I guess we've been quite lucky where Steve goes, I'm not precious about it. I always say to him, I don't want to piss on your Picasso. I don't want to change it completely, because you've got a thought process that you've gone through and gone, I'm bearing my heart and my soul in my songwriting. So I don't want to take it down a completely different direction by giving it a different sound or a different feel through the drums. But there's been a couple of occasions over the years that we've been playing together where something magical just happens, where it comes out and goes, actually, I wouldn't have done it that way, because he doesn't think like a drummer. He thinks of, right, I need this beat out of Pro Tools and it's going to give me X, Y, and Z. It gives me that foundation, but not the human touch, which I think as musicians we all have, with a little, our personality that comes through for our playing, be it a little, the way that I'm, as a drummer, I might do a fill or a different accent on something in a different place that you're not going to get from a computer program that goes, give me a song that's, in, 4/4 and X, Y, and Z, and it just kind of stacks it together. So for me, being around other musicians, and this is why I do jest. I say I sit at the back and hit things and keep people in time, but actually, occasionally as drummers have the little opportunity to take something down a slightly different direction. And absolutely, for Steve's projects, if there was a different drummer, his songs would sound different, because that drummer would bring their personality, their experience, their feel, their musicality to it as well. So whilst I would never profess in any way to be a songwriter or anything along those lines, I've definitely probably had a bit of an influence in the way that it comes out. And that's the fantastic thing about working collaboratively as a band, or indeed as a musician for hire, is that you do have the chance to do that, because you're not always necessarily just given right, here's some music and I do not want you to deviate. Particularly at a local level as well. I mean, we're not in Abbey Road, we're not signed to Warner, we're not doing X, Y, and Z. We're funding it out of our own pockets from our day jobs because it's a passion.
Yeah.
But that's why we all do it, because it's fun. And
Yeah.
it's what gives us a beating heart, and we kind of go, actually, this is really exciting to talk about, and it's really exciting to talk to family or friends or colleagues at work, other musicians, and go, this is my work, and I'm really proud of it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the one thing that really keeps us ticking over, is that it's what drives us and what motivates us. I don't really care if anybody else doesn't like it or not, because I do. And I'm really pleased and really proud of the output that we've got from it. Do I have aspirations to be, for us to kind of, tour the world and X, Y, and Z? Of course, if that opportunity came, I would not turn it down. But the reality is, I couldn't afford to. I've got a job. A lot of us have day jobs, and particularly for me, being the drummer, I'd have a slightly less percentage out of the actual songwriting credits and things like that, perhaps, than anybody else, but it's certainly the one thing that I've encouraged Steve is to do more of, is to network with other songwriters. So I'll definitely pass the information on about the songwriting camp to Steve, because the one thing he probably needs to do is exploit that avenue much more than maybe he has done, because we can only do so much ourselves without going to that next level, or spending more money that we can't afford in terms of getting it to the next level. But I'll be more than happy to if I can work the technology, of course, being a Luddite, and being a man who sits at the back with wood and hits things, using computers is quite challenging for me. But yeah, I'll see if I can share my screen and perhaps play you an excerpt from the album that was, say, recorded.
That'd be great.
Up the road at Tad, which for us is a great facility for us to have, because we don't have home studios, and the input that the team there have in terms of the sound engineering and the mixing again just helps kind of take that song from here's a concept, and it grows. It's a bit like a child. A child has a few basic natural things that they know themselves, but everything else is learned, and everything else that they kind of grow up with, that they get influenced by those that are around them. And certainly for us in the studio over Christmas, some of what's come out of the project was the influence of the guys engineering, producing, kind of going, have you thought about doing this? Or actually, why don't you try a different tone on the guitar? Or why don't you try something a little bit different? And that's the really exciting thing, because it's a journey. And we get to the point now where we've got an output and we go, you know what? Actually, we're really, really pleased with that. And it's probably better than we could have done if we absolutely just locked ourselves away and just did it all on our own.
Have you got an excerpt that you've got access to the original demo so that we can hear the contributions and how that's evolved? I'd find that really interesting.
Yeah, I've probably got something somewhere. I'll have to dig it out on my email somewhere. But yeah, I'll have a couple of bits where we go, this is where it started, and yeah, evolution. This is where it finished. I'll if I perhaps play you a little bit of where we're at the end, and whilst it's playing, I'll find you something.
That sounds like a good idea. Yeah.
From where it was. So, right, I think. Let's see if this works. Okay.
Let me take you by the hand, you know the hour is getting late. The politics of empathy are open to debate. I like to drag you through this wasteland, there is no time away. When the threads of humankind is on fade, don't you want to paint a style on the lost forgotten faces with abandon in their eyes? A good Samaritan is dying. Started drawing flies, can I so blind still read the word betrayed? We close our eyes and we chase the sun. We dream our dreams when the day is done. Running free beneath the burning sky. We sow our seeds through our silent days. We sing the songs of a life well played, and close our hearts to the fear inside. It's life, Jim, but not as we know it. Is the depth of your compassion measured by a depth of pocket? Frozen in slow motion like a fuse without a rocket. A portrait of a generation lost. It's still life, but it's still life to me. The underpass is throbbing to the beat of misery. We subjugate, humiliate and alienate the weak, and somewhere down the line we'll pay the cost. We close our eyes and we chase the sun. We dream our dreams when the day is done. Running free beneath the burning sky. We sow our seeds through our silent days. We sing the songs.
So anyway, that was a bit of it. So I've managed to download the original demo that Steve sent to me as well.
Excellent.
And I think for me, this is where we probably have. You'll hear some of the different influences. I'll blow my own trumpet a little bit, of course. There's just the odd little bit as a drummer that you put in, like the accents on the hi-hats, or a slight different feel to the beat or to the fills. But what you'll probably also hear on the original one is, say, some of the slightly different guitar sounds and things as well. Some of that again would have come out through that creative process of the band working together. So let's see if I can share this in the right way.
Sounded really good anyway. That sounded spot on, I think.
So we've got, you know, again, the guys at TAD, who I think most of us probably know, actually do a really good job down there.
Ume is a very good engineer.
Yes,
particularly with drum recording, he's fantastic.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time. Day one was just right. Let's make sure we've got the drums sounding right in terms of sound, and then, you know, get all the drum tracks done. We did 10 tracks on the album, and yeah, a good 2 days of that was just let's get the drums right. And by the end of it, I was probably doubting myself, can I actually play these things or not? Because, you know, you go, no, do it again. But you just want to get it, you know, get it right, because it's very difficult to go back afterwards. But I'll play a little excerpt, if you guys want, of the original demo, and you'll perhaps hear some of the subtle differences of how the song's evolved. So. Not ABBA, by the way, it is big.
It is for ABBA.
Let me take you by the hand, you know the hour is getting late. The politics of empathy are open to debate. I'd like to drag you through this wasteland. There is no time to wait when the threads of human kindness are all frayed. Don't you want to paint a smile on the lost forgotten faces with abandon in their eyes? A good Samaritan is dying and he started drawing flies. Can I so blind still read the word betrayed? We close our eyes and we chase the sun. We dream our dreams when the day is done. Running free beneath a burning sky. Sow our seeds through our salad days. We sing the songs of a life well played, and close our hearts to the fear inside. It's life, Jim, but not as we know it. Is the depth of your compassion measured by your depth of pocket? Frozen in slow motion like a fuse without a rocket. A portrait of a generation lost. It's still life, but it's still life to me. The underpass is throbbing to the beat of misery. We subjugate. So yeah, a little bit of stuff in there, but so there's just a few little subtle differences between that original demo and where we then end up with, like the odd little accents on the hi-hat, or the just like the echo on a couple of the voices, a couple of the lyrics in there. So it's yeah, always an interesting journey. Being in a band in particular, and you know, just being part of that creative process is the kick that I get from it. You know, I will try, you know, for Steve's stuff in particular, to be fairly close to his intention, but you know, so we get on well enough where he goes, "You're a drummer, I'm not. You do what you think sounds right with that." So.
I think it's a great advert for why you should do, like, you know, why you should play with real people rather than synthesized tracks. There's just so much more life and drive in the one with you all really playing. Yeah, I mean, we're quite lucky as a band. Me and Steve and the bass player in that project have been in a covers band together for almost 10 years now. So we've actually quite developed that real nice tight working relationship, and we know the little nuances of each other's play. So then for Steve with his songwriting, this is the first album we've released with the Inception label. In terms of the band name, we've done 3 albums, or Steve's done 3 albums previously just as a solo artist. His first was the typical singer-songwriter acoustic guitar, Bob Dylan-esque, that's it. Second album, because we're playing in the covers band by that stage, so I really want you guys to perhaps do a couple of tracks with me. So it evolved with still a very strong acoustic feel, 3 or 4 tracks with musicians on it. The third solo album became much more, well, actually now we're going to balance between
acoustic driven and a bit more electric, and then it's just taken that next evolution again where we go, actually this is like full on electric. And so it's been, again, being part of that journey, it's been quite interesting to see how that's evolved, and you know, and for Steve's songwriting as well, as he's realised, or not realised, but he's going on writing for other people and with other people. So that's perhaps just influenced how we structured some of the songs. To think, well, actually, I want a guitar break here, or a breakdown for the drums, or a breakdown for the bass guitar. He kind of creates those gaps, creates those spaces, which in his early music, just in his acoustic guitar, there's not the opportunity to do that.
It's very confident sounding, very confident sounding.
Yeah, I mean, again, we've been around the block a little bit, so I think we've got some good experience between us in the band. So I'm just over 40. Steve's 10 years older than me. Our bass player's another 10 years older again. But probably the greatest thing for Steve is that the second guitarist in this band is his son. So for him as well, it's actually a really nice connection to have his lad playing on the album with him.
My bandmates, my bass player is the dad. He's like the dad of our group, really. And our drummer is kind of in his age gap, but the guitarist and myself are like in our 30s. But our like second guitarist is the bass player's son. We've all been playing together for years, and like it is really nice to have that connection. And like I do not come from a musical family. My family can collectively about play a CD. Like seriously, that's about what I get from them. And so the fact that like I even have an instrument is just astonishing to them, let alone being able to play it. And I think it, you know, I've made a musical family, and that's why I like to do things like this, because it shows us, you know, the people that we can share things with. You mentioned earlier that you guys like having something that you can share with your friends and your family and say like, this is what I do. This is actually what I really enjoy doing, and we're quite successful at it. You know, we've done this. And I think you're right in the fact that you said the success is not like, you know, of course we'd all like to like sell our albums, but the success is the fact that like you've done it. You did it, you know, and that you have something to show for at the end. In fact, I know you through the association of a festival performance that you guys did last year, again at Tad Studios, but this ability to kind of like showcase what we do. I believe that everyone who works on something should have a platform to share it in whatever capacity. And I know that thankfully recording is now quite obviously getting to be more accessible, whether we choose to do it ourselves, like Michael has sort of, actually, I'm going to say Martin has done by himself. Michael kind of did the half and half because he wrote pretty much everything himself and he recorded at Tad and did like a live stream and stuff, but he has the capacity to do that production stuff. And then where you guys literally just went in and recorded the stuff there. And, you know, it's amazing. I mean, I'm not quite at that, I'm sort of at that capacity right now of getting my stuff recorded. But, you know, where do we take this? I actually perform a lot. That's how my music gets out. That's where I share. I do a lot of open mic nights. I have a covers band because I just like to have that experience where I can make people feel something. And I find it a little bit easier because I'm lazy to just do it live as many times as I can, you know.
Yeah, man,
it's not lazy, I don't think.
Well, I mean, it's sort of lazy in the sense that like I haven't recorded it. I didn't go into a studio. I didn't pay somebody to record it or work on the equipment and all of that. I literally just do it. It's like I take my practice to that pub to do it at an open mic night, or I take my practice or our band rehearsal to this gig to just do what I do. You know?
I don't think it's lazy. I find performing an absolute slog in comparison to all of this digital work. I really do. I hate it. Honestly hate it. And, you know, I'm very jealous of people that can just perform in front of others and get energy from it as opposed to just lose it, which is what I do.
Well, I like to kind of like help push people. I mean, encourage people. Push is the wrong word. Sometimes to them it feels like I am pushing them both hands into like the deep end of death. But that's why I'll bring this up now. We have last month we decided that we were going to try to do a closed mic night for our group. And it is essentially going to be in like an open mic format where we can perform for each other. We can get a space that's live that we can all gather in and just share what we do. We can get used to performing in a sense that makes us feel comfortable, whether we go into a place like Tad Studios and do a live streamed gig, or if we are at a town festival later in the year when things are opened up and we're performing on a stage for an actual audience. How do we kind of get ourselves back into that? How do we, feel comfortable to share our music in all of the capacities that we can? Because I know that that's what you guys do. That's and even though it is a little bit scary, even releasing something on Spotify, that process to me is just like getting on stage somewhere. You're putting something out there.
Yeah, I
So
think what's really great for us performing live is what we love more probably than the actual kind of recording process. And certainly in the covers band, say that the three of us have been in this covers band together. This year we'll do our 200th gig together.
wow.
We would have done it last year if it wasn't for for what we've all had to live through over the last 18 months. But with the exception, with the original music, far less gigs because there's actually less opportunities for original music. So we do the covers band because it gets us out there, it gets us playing. But then what we tend to find for original live music, a lot of venues they go, yeah, well it's fine, but you've got to sell, minimum of 25 tickets at £8 a ticket, and we'll give you £1 per ticket for every ticket that you sell over the 25. And it's like, okay, I know you're running a business as well, but part of what we want to bring our music to new people, and the amount of gigs that we've done when we've been on bills and gone, like we're playing in front of the other bands, and then when it's their turn, they're playing in front of the other bands, and then maybe there's one band who's brought 8 mates with them, but we tend to find again there are typically the bands who are 20 years younger than I am, and they've got mates who go, yeah, of course, it's a Tuesday night. We'll get on the train down to Camden and come see you play. But it's a little bit harder when you're 40s, 50s, and 60s and go, well, I've got work tomorrow, and actually it's not really my thing, and well, I'm not sure if I want to do that. So actually, a lot of our opportunities became a lot more restricted. But what we're doing for the album, we're actually playing in Leighton Buzzard. For those of you who don't know, there's a really good venue over there called the Crooked Crowbar, and they're really, really great at putting on all kinds of live entertainment, comedy, solo artists, DJs, bands, the works. So we're actually doing an album launch over there midweek. But that's the thing that we're quite looking forward to, is actually getting out and playing the album in front of people. Because that's where we get the best response. And it only takes one person to come up to us at the end of the night and go, you know what, guys, I really enjoyed that. That was really, really good. And you go, oh, our work's done. It's fun. It's a great feeling. Now we'd really like you to spend some money on it, because we're actually going to release it on vinyl. So please buy the record. But the fact of just to get out there and playing for just one person to say, I really enjoyed that, then we go, okay, it's not just us who enjoy this, it's other people.
Does anybody have anything else that they would like to ask, say, anything to Christian?
Yeah, I get. It's really interesting what you say about having this, played for 10 years together, and I'm starting to get that, having played for about a year with people, and and again, even though with 6 weeks with this other guy, you get to know what they like and what they're good at, and also you have this, I think this, what's the word? I can't think of the word now, but this chemistry that is you can't write it down. You just know there is this chemistry, which, again, going back to what I said initially, you can't really explain to anyone unless you've you felt it, and I can see that after 10 years it's going to be even greater than after a year and a half. And I'm also very interested. You're saying you go into the studio, and this is what I really get. Whilst I wasn't, I was sort of saying, well, how did Elton John do it? But which sort of negates my thoughts about other people, is that you go into the studio and that will be absolutely right for the lead guitarist, but you don't quite know how he's going to play it. But he's going to play it the way you want him to play it, because you just know him. And the same with you, and the same with the bass. And I really get that. And I would think that, I'm just looking at the Steve Winch and Inception now. I mean, I think you end up with an album which is effectively, okay, it's sort of led by one person writing it, but it does become a group effort, does it not?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think, to be fair to Steve, whilst we joined him on his second and third solo albums, he very much was of the opinion that whilst he's the principal songwriter, the project is now not just Steve Winch. The product is Steve Winch and this band. As a solo artist, it was like, of course it's just me. I've got an acoustic guitar strapped on my back. That's it. But over time, and we've been fortunate enough to do a couple of shows at the Stables with the previous albums. It was billed as Steve Winch, but hopefully we'll get the chance to go there again, and it will be it's Steve Winch and the Inception, because from his point of view, I mean, he's very influenced by Paul Weller, The Jam, but Elvis Costello, and it was Elvis Costello and the Attractions. It's Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. It's Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. So from his perspective, he's all, you guys are the reason why I can get my music out there, because you give me that foundation, and I might stand at the front, I might be the focal point in many ways, but I can't do this without you. And it is, it really is family, because his son's in the band, but we've become family as well as a result of that. So it was it actually feels great to go. It's not just me playing on the album, but even for me with the earlier stuff, getting the CD made, it's like, oh, that's me. That you kind of flick through the book and go, drums, Christian Carter, and it's like, oh, I feel quite proud of that. That's pretty cool. So this time around to produce it on vinyl, we're like, we might sell 200, who knows? But I've got something really physical, really tangible, to kind of go, I made that, and I was part of that, and that's just what music brings for people together, is that it's that real sense of joy and pride, and go, I've done this, and other people might be able to copy it, but it won't be the same as that. And we feel that for those of us that playing covers bands and do covers, yes, we're playing the songs written by the Beatles, the Clash, the Jam, the Sex Pistols, whoever, but it's not quite the same as the birth of something where those guys went, I did that, that's me. That's what we've got with the original music, where we can go, this is us. No, people can recreate it, but it didn't start with them. And that's where I've always really enjoyed being in bands, and particularly being the drummers, that I'm part of that process. Made some very good friends over the years as a result of doing that as well. So I always find bass players become my best friends in bands. I think I'm godfather to one bass player's kids, and another bass player in another band I was best man at for his wedding. So there is this spiritual connection between the bassist and the drummer, for sure.
It's the rhythm of the music, man. You guys get it.
I had a thought, Christian, and I just really, it's only for the future, but I'm just thinking about what you were saying, and certainly when Bruce Springsteen and the East Street Band. I don't know if you've seen on Apple TV their last album that they basically sort of showed that they were it looked like they were recording it. They'd obviously had it in the bag, but it was so interesting watching them. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't. No, I'll have
well, the process and the real love they had for everyone, and it was. And I was just thinking that, you know, the next time that Steve goes down this road, just get some cameras rolling in the studio, because this progression of going from effectively demo to finished product, I think it's very interesting. It doesn't just interest, hopefully, people like me. I think it interests a lot of other people. It might just be another angle that, you know, rather than just releasing the album, as it were, which is great. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to belittle it at all. It's fantastic, but you've got a bit more meat on the bones, as it were, than just the album. And of course, something that, you know, if people, you know, that may have as much value as the album, because, you know, seeing this growth of a project is interesting to people.
Yeah.
And I just sort of, it just made me think, especially having seen the Bruce Springsteen one, which I think obviously was high budget, but it doesn't necessarily need to be high budget. You know, you can have some static, you know, cameras and whatever, and then some interviews and whatever. And I think it could be a very good complementary addition to releasing another album, you know.
The point that David Ray. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm going to say that's a really good observation, because that what we remember from our time in the studio, kind of doing it all, is only a very small proportion of what actually happened whilst we were there as well. So even for us to have something to kind of reflect back upon, we've got the bill to pay, obviously, but you know, what we perhaps won't remember is those little bits and pieces, you know, like a proper fly on the wall, you know, as Matt Hancock now knows, obviously. You know, what gets caught innocently is part of that journey. So yeah, I love to I'll bear that in mind. That's a good idea.
And in fact, sorry, just one other. I mean, we really thought, well, for a number of reasons. I mean, we always video our band practice, and if I had more time, I'd just do the outtakes because they're so funny, you know. You know, it's a very good record of what we've done, but the outtakes is such good fun, and especially if you know there's a camera rolling, you can gently, you know, a couple of people, the banter reaches banter level of, you know, quite high, really.
Yeah.
But, you know, hey, yeah, but no, yeah, that's just my thoughts on it anyway.
There's a really good video diary. I think Phil Collins recorded basically everything on video camera during the 80s, and I've spent far too long just watching the recording process of those 80s Genesis albums. You know, when they had the technology to actually record stuff, you know, on Handycam, and it came off, you know, it wouldn't have been on whatever 8mm or something like that. They could actually just keep on chucking tapes in it and record everything, and you hear the songs come together, and you know, you've got Collins there just sort of mouthing noises of songs that end up being Home by the Sea, and you know, they all go off. And then which one is it? It's Tony Banks wrote the lyrics for that. So he's got the idea. So he stays behind while they go off for lunch or something, writes all the lyrics out. They run through it all. And then he just nails it, of course, because it's Phil Collins. They talk through like, oh, this is my vocal booth. This is the mic I use, you know, all of this sort of stuff. You have the kind of, okay, can we change that drum bit just there because that bit's a little bit off. It's just, and then you have the bit at the end where they're listening to the mix down, and then you pause it and then you go and listen to it on Spotify, because you're like, I've seen how it was created. Now I want to hear all the bits I've just heard. It's brilliant. And yeah, it's not high budget like the E Street Band was. It's very candid. It's very kind of Handycam, point, leave it there. It's great, even though it's not particularly good footage, like in terms of film quality. It's very grainy. It's great though.
Yeah. Well, with these things, it's so easy to do that now as well.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, a couple of other things we did virtually over lockdown was filmed on an iPhone. You know, a couple of ambient mics in the room to pick up the sound so we can mix it a little bit. But yeah, so the technology that's available now to capture the moment and to get your music out there is very, very different to it was, even 10 years ago. I mean, so, before these streaming platforms have really taken over. So, yeah, there's some, we'll bear that in mind next time, and we'll get 4 views on YouTube for it. But hey, it's 4
Yeah,
views.
but
It doesn't matter.
yeah, but you just never you never know. And I mean, God, I mean, it's the sort of thing. I mean, if you did a half-hour thing on it, if someone some whatever, some local TV program needed half an hour's programming, whatever. Yeah. I mean,
Everybody's interested in the process because it helps us to break down the barriers between us and the musicians that are making this stuff. I mean, I saw it was in fact a documentary about the 808, the beat maker, and what it was doing in the 80s. In fact, Phil Collins was writing on it and stuff. And again, the same thing that Michael was just talking about. You hear this and then you go back and you listen to the track and you're like, holy shit, did that really just happen? Are you kidding me? Did I literally just get schooled? Like, that is so easy. I could do that. Put the 808 on my drum pad and like just sick, done. And another thing as well, I think that it helps to show that energy that we don't get to necessarily portray when we're not performing our music. So for the people that don't get to see Steve Winch in the Inception live in a capacity, they can still kind of get to know you guys in a way that I might get to know you if I see you guys play at a pub and I come and chat with you. But to see what you do, to hear people's voices. I mean, I remember watching like backstage footage. I bought a VHS of Spice Girl backstage footage. There was a Fall Out Boy DVD that came out with one of their CDs that was all background footage of their tour. One of the best Nothing But Thieves music video is just footage from their tour and just things that they're doing, because it's like, we want to know who that person is. Everybody wants to connect to the musicians in their life. We don't want to be, I think everyone even wants to like have a bit of a perspective of like Adele's life or something like that. We all watched Rocket Man because we're like, oh my God, I really want to know the life of Elton John. And it is sort of voyeuristic in a way, but the best part about this, and especially about filming anything you're doing musically, it's so raw and it's so real. I think music is the most pure intention in the world, which is why I am in music to the capacity that I am. Because music is the place where we all just let down our barriers. Yeah, you might be performing a little bit, but you're still channeling energy into one central thing. And everything else gets put to the side. You get to see who a person really is, or the capacity of who that person really is, in a way that nothing else can. And especially at a place like TAD, because the recording studio and places can be done, they have filming and stuff there. There are people that you can get in touch with. I know a ton of film students. Martin here, he actually worked in film for years. And so even just having conversations with him about things that he does for camera switching in lessons that we would have, I was like, that's really cool. That's a good idea. So it's this, just chatting with people, having these conversations to kind of drum up more ideas that just help us illuminate what we're doing the whole time. I think that's wonderful. I'm kind of noticing time as well. I want to be conscientious because I know that Michael has a new project, and I'd like to give you the opportunity to share with us what you've been up to.
Oh, I could do that. Yeah, definitely. Let me see if I've got the ability to share sound. Oh, I can. That's amazing. Excellent. So I have been working. So early in this year, I kind of did a bit of a joke 80s project. Like, it was a slightly hammed up, production-wise hammed up, and I did a little video as well. My dad does video editing, so I just chucked him a bunch of footage that I'd done, like miming and sort of concept. And then I really like these sounds, but I had to sit around for a bit. I don't really know what to do with them other than just that one off, really. And my brother is somebody who absolutely worships the guitar player John Mayer, and he's just started doing stuff with a very retro 80s sound. So my brother basically texts me and saying, I've just discovered the 80s are amazing. I'm like, okay, Patience. I've just invented the 80s. Have you? All right. He's really cool. So my brother is a really, really good songwriter and singer, or at least I certainly think he is anyway. And he's rather annoyingly got into technology this last year with nothing else to do. And it turns out he's really bloody good at that as well. So anyway, this is, so long story short, so he comes up with this idea that he's like, can you do some drums for this? And I'm like, yeah, I could do some drums for that. And I thought, I don't want to, detract from his journey of discovery, but I'll just send him this sort of half idea that I've been working on and said, I've got this and I don't know what to do with it. I don't know if you fancy, just what do you think? And he's got really excited. He was like, this is amazing. This is exactly what I want to be doing. This is really fantastic. So I'm like, good, at home for this idea, finally. So he hasn't finished doing the vocals. What I thought I'd do is I'd show you kind of the work in progress, kind of, so the ideas and how they came together initially, so which bits I had that I then pieced together and which sort of sounds I sort of quite liked, and then show you snippets. Then I'll play through what is just a backing track actually at the moment, and then at the end I'll dig into the stuff. There's a couple of couple of minutes, maybe not even that, like I think maybe 45 seconds in total, of my brother workshopping vocal ideas over the top, trying out different things, not even necessarily with lyrics, but just to get a feel, just borrowing bits and pieces from really cool influences that he has, like Toto and other people, Peter Gabriel stuff, a lot of 80s-y kind of sounds. But because it's produced now, you can't really, it's not going to sound like, and it's never going to sound like it was through an SSL desk onto tape, which means it doesn't sound actually like those artists either. So that's quite cool. So right, what should I do? I should try and share my screen so that I can then share the audio as well. So if I do that, you should see a session and you should hear something. Can you hear the piano? Can you hear any piano? You cannot hear any piano. What shall I do about that? I shall stop sharing and I should try harder. Share sound from my computer, yeah.
I allowed to share sound.
Yeah.
Then
Well, no. So I can hear that, but this isn't working. Maybe if I do Zoom audio device, but that probably means I'll stop being able to hear it, right?
I can hear that. Yeah.
You can hear that?
Yeah.
Okay. But if I do this, you can't. There's nothing coming out now, is there?
No.
Oh, that's annoying. Well, it doesn't really matter because I think I can probably just, I don't actually have to play anything on this keyboard. I can just use the bits that I've got. Cool. So I had.
Have you tried on the advanced setting music or computer sound only?
Ooh.
When you go into share sound, if you open the thing, the advanced one, that's the third one over.
I've stopped share, start again, won't I? If I go to share screen, if I do advance, okay, hang on a second. If I go there, technology, I've got that. And if I go to advanced, where?
If you go to the advanced tab,
yeah,
music or computer sound only.
I've got computer audio. You're on Windows, aren't you?
No, I am on Mac.
Oh, well.
I don't know Windows. What is Windows?
What is Windows? I think that's what other people use.
Yeah,
computer audio. I mean, that's the only option I've got really is computer audio or video or portion of screen, slides as background.
Yeah, it's computer audio.
Oh, that's weird. Computer audio then.
Well, what I suspect is that because Ableton is trying to shove sound out of this sound card and not trying particularly hard to do anything else, I think that it can't, in order to reduce the lag, that's why it's doing it basically. But you can hear.
I can hear them.
That's working. Okay, so you've got stuff. Cool. So I had this idea, which were two different ideas. One idea went something like that, just sort of that kind of a progression, and I'm trying to learn a bit of music theory, more music theory this year. So that's kind of based on a modal thing. I think it's like a Lydian mode where you have these extra, I think it's I think you take a normal sort of C scale, and I think it's a sharp. It might be a sharp fourth. I think it's a sharp fourth, and then it's a flat 7 anyway. So it creates that kind of sort of weird suspensey sort of thing, like it reminds me of like soundtracks to things like American Beauty and things like that, and then it does that kind of idea. So I posted that as the kind of challenge idea for one of the sessions that we had a few months ago, because I wasn't sure what to do with it. So I did that, but then completely separately to that, I had this thing going in my head, which was going to be a synth loop, and it was going to go bom ba bum ba bum bom ba bum ba bum ba bum. I was like, let's got to do that. Something's got to do that at some point in a project of some description. I don't know what, but it's going to be that. So then
I can see it.
You can see it because you can see the dots, right? So you can see that. So hopefully you should be able to. Right, let's try again. So that kind of made its way into that. So that was basically without the piano at this point. So it's just an F, right? So it's kind of trying to establish kind of some sort of rhythm, some potential. Don't know where it's going, don't know anything yet. And then I go, okay, well, it can't just be that, it's got to have guitar as well, because if it's going to be a song, I can't think in synth terms where to take this that's new and different. I'm going to add something else instead. So it then takes on this. So it kind of has that kind of delay on it, like sort of a Pink Floyd-y sort of The Wall, and U2 and things like that. So that happened, and then I kind of got to the point where it's like, okay, it needs a drum track of some description. So I have here, I've got the 808, Emma, actually, as it happens. So I've got the 808 down here doing sort of, hang on, come on. Why doesn't that work? Because it's not soloed, is that why? So that's doing these sorts of things, or that sort of stuff. So there's a little bit of that going on. And then I thought, well, it's got to have real drums. And in the 80s, they have this kind of gated drum sound. So you've got gated drums in here as well. So I thought, okay, well, for technical reasons, you can't just go into a door and go, okay, I want drums, and then just program a bunch of drums. And if you want them to all sound kind of differently with lots of reverb on them, you need to like put multiple drum kits in. So that's what I've got for. So it's not only that I've got this electronic kit and a real kit. So the snare drum is just on one track by itself here, and it's just kind of a standard snare drum sound. And it just sounds like that, really. That's all it is. On that track, there's just snare drum. And the way I did it is I kind of sort of played what I thought was roughly the pattern, and then I moved the notes around so that the different parts would play from the different places. And I've got a gated drums. Hopefully, is this the gated drum sound? Yeah. And it kind of clips off that reverb at the end, so it creates that nice sort of 80s blatty sort of thing. And then there's some other stuff going on here as well. So if I then solo the drum kit, the thing that goes with the dum ba bum ba dum. Oh, and there's an actual real shaker. So that's just me playing the shaker on this bit because it needed that kind of movement. So that's the basic drum loop. And then that is like the first 2 bars of a song that are basically together. So if I then put these back. So it's at this point, you're like, okay, well, that is not much of a song, even though it sounds quite cool. So if I then go, well, what other things have I got knocking about? Well, let's see if I can take that piano thing and see what I can do with it. So then you kind of go, okay, well, I need to speed it up. I need to change the feel of it a little bit, but then it ends up sounding like this. So at this point, like, okay, that's a good start. But then it was kind of, okay, that's kind of harmonically pretty static because I've got this bass line and it's just droning on F, and it has to go away from F. It has to go somewhere else. It has to do something different. So I ended up, most of this part over here is kind of leftover remnants of me just playing chords on this instrument. Let's see if I can make it work. No, I can't. I can never make it work straight away, can I? So it's like a really, it's so a mate of mine is really into sort of lots of plugins and stuff. This is a made by a company called Cherry Audio. I don't know if you can you see that big sort of array of knobs and dials and stuff. So it's a replica of Polymoog, which I think was on basically all of the early Gary Newman stuff is a good example, and many, many other things as well. And I think it was something ridiculous like 30 quid in the sale. And so you've got all of these great retro sounds in there. So I was just noodling around on that. So I came up with a sort of bells part as well. So I'll play through kind of, this is more or less exactly as it sort of came out as a kind of, okay, a progression. It's got to go in a couple of different places. And then I'll play through the backing track so you can hear that. And then a couple of snippets of what my brother's now doing with it. And then I'll maybe shut up for a bit. So with that first piano idea in mind for this first pad part, I needed kind of an instrumental bit. I didn't know where this was going at the time. So this is not where it was. This was just somewhere sketchy. And so I was like, okay, that's enough material to maybe possibly cobble together an actual song out of it, because there's kind of a lead up bit and there's a versey sort of bit, and there's somewhere that it feels like, you know what I mean? So it feels like home, like a home chorus. It's like, and we've settled on the main theme. I don't know what it is yet, but that's where it lives. Like I've created at least the road and the street and the street lights and various other things exist for it to be then sort of in context. So should I play? I'll play it as it now kind of sits with the arrangement, so you can hear how it's ended up from that kind of strange sort of improvised journey of cobbled together bits and pieces and sound and so forth. If I could take the first bars off of loop, that would be great, wouldn't it? Shall I try again? made it a bit early. So there you go. That's how that's ended up. It's a bit, there's quite a few bits which I think need substantial tidying that I've just copied a crappy recording just because that needed bulking out. So I'll probably do a few guitar bits again. So that's what my brother's now got to work with, and he's doing this sort of thing on it, which I think you might find interesting, because there's no direction whatsoever with this, other than it was kind of his idea to want to do sort of this kind of production idea in the first place. So he's not got like any direction from me specifically. But he's just playing around with some cool ideas for songs. And I think I always find it's like instrumentals are a little bit difficult to get on board with. So when you can hear something with actual lyrics, it really starts to make a lot more sense. Well, not even lyrics, just melody. So he's just sending me stuff on WhatsApp pretty much. And then also bouncing a few ideas down from the system that he's got, which is just some software, a little bit like this. I think he uses Logic, and then sending me that on WhatsApp as well. So I've had to kind of get them all off WhatsApp and send it to myself an email and get them here. So hopefully, does that work? Can you hear that?
Yep.
That's working, cool. Okay, so I think this is the earliest one. So that's kind of, okay, it's got to have that chanty bit like a lot of 80s songs had, especially, Toto and things like that. They're really good at that. But no lyrics, it's just noises at this point. I think that's the point worth making, because it's the way a lot of, I think, singers and songwriters work, is they make noises before they do lyrics. Not all of them, but that happens a lot. There's no way you should do it.
Someone got us to take it to another life. Yeah, the time of our lives. We're whispering down the wind. Yeah, we're taking it in, and we're flying away to the time of our lives.
So you can I'm trying to insist that he doesn't put any tuning on it, and then he'll kind of rely on tuning so much that he kind of just throws stuff down as demos, which, as you can hear there's some seriously daft notes in there, which the tuning is made worse because it's assumed what? Well, you can't have meant the actual notes of the scale, you must have meant different. And it's like, no, it's not jazz. I think that's probably worth skipping. But anyway, this is kind of this is not the performance which I'm going to step in at this point and say, okay, if you want to do this, it's got to be bolder. It's got to be bigger. You've got to go you've really got to reach with the vocal, and you've probably got to wait until everyone leaves the house to have a go at it.
We're whispering down the wind. Yeah, we're taking it in, and we're flying away to the time of our lives. We're whispering down the wind. Yeah, we're taking it in, and we're flying away to the time of our lives. We're whispering down the wind, and we're taking it in, and we're flying away to the time of our lives.
So he's a git, isn't he? But basically, it's kind of there. But I think at that point, that vocal line is like, there are so many things going on, and I don't think you can really tell what's supposed to be backing and what's supposed to be lead. You can't really hear the difference. And I think it's because it's like, okay, you could actually have them all interwoven, and you could have them all going at once, but who's in charge? What are you listening for? What is a person going to sing when they stop the song and wander out to the shops? What are they going to do? And I think there's that sawing, that sawing vocal that I did. I can't remember how it goes now. I said, I can't hide it. It's not very good, but that bit is sawing and it's massive. But then you can't go from that and go, oh, I'm just going to mumble into the microphone some ideas about going on holiday and hope for the best. So it's like, it's got to be workshopped some more, but I think it's going to sound pretty good. I'm pretty confident it's going to sound right when he's finished with it, you know. It's a good chance for me to kind of work with him on something where we're contributing different parts, because I think it might be a lot of other people's experience of working with siblings, but you need to find niches. You know, you can't be both trying to go for the same stuff. But that and other stuff that I've got other ideas and things that are going on at the moment. But that's the main one, which is kind of the most in progress, interesting idea I could bring to this sort of a group, I think. So I hope you find that interesting, or at least amusing, if nothing else.
How are you finding it kind of doing the remote working? Because I guess, I mean, from my perspective, you know, playing in a band, a lot of earlier bands I've been in, music was organic because you got 4 people in a room bouncing off one another. But I guess you're just doing the same thing, but more in the virtual world where you send something and then something gets laid on top. Does that bring a different dynamic to being in the same room at the same time with somebody?
I've never successfully written anything properly in the same room as somebody else at that particular time. Not what you would call writing something like from a jam session at Evolve, because I've never really met people who, while great musicians, and I've been in bands, I've never met people with whom I could kind of come up with ideas spontaneously together with that chemistry. What will have happened is that someone's written a song like Steve Widge, like not as elaborate as his demos, and they'll come in and they go, I've got this song, this is kind of how the bass line goes, and this is kind of how the drums should go, right, should we do it? And we arrange it together. With my brother and I think because we're both quite driven, we're both quite individualistic about the way we approach stuff, it's actually probably safer for us to just be working remotely. A little bit. I'm exaggerating that side of our relationship a little bit, but having it to be what people like to call asynchronous, that is to say, you don't have to be in the same place at the same time or even online at the same time. You do it when you want. So he'll do a whole bunch of stuff and he'll send me a whole bunch of things and I'll digest that and I'll kind of figure out, I like this, don't like that. You know, I'll do a couple of different ideas. And that works pretty well because it kind of means that you don't have to commit to that 3 hours on a Saturday afternoon. And if you're not in the right headspace, that's that Saturday afternoon gone. Yeah, I look at it like that.
I think it was a fascinating kind of example of, you know, how modern songs are written kind of from building blocks up. And going back to what we were talking about right at the very beginning, I think that's why it works as a, you know, a multi-collaborative venture, in the way that what you're just talking about, 2 guys sitting down in a room, is a very, very different process. But because when you're writing now, it's not just about what the chord is, but it's the sound of the chord that makes up, you know, the song as you go along. I think that's where it's just a different craft, isn't it?
It could be. I think that you still need that kind of initial spark of an idea, right? I think where I got stuck was where I was kind of, and, you know, working for music technology company, we do a lot of kind of, okay, so what are the things that the customers find difficult? You know, where is this customer? This customer is a kind of, you know, typical person that might buy this kind of bit of equipment. Where is it that they are at? Why would they buy this? Why would it help them? And there's a lot of stuff that's like they get stuck in 8-bar loops is one thing. I don't think I'm revealing any industry secrets by saying that is something that a lot of people struggle with, particularly electronic musicians. They'll get 8 bars that sound amazing. And they're like, now where do I go from here? You know, so I think it takes you need that kind of, the music's got to have a journey that suggests itself. And I think the production plays such a huge part in sounding contemporary in a way that it did before. But, you know, you could have a bunch of people in a room playing and put that out. And now you can, but it isn't what the top 40 sounds like. So you have to be able to create those sounds in order to sound contemporary. But I think I think there are probably quite a few different ways. I think a few years ago, like the Alicia Keys and someone else, like New York song, I think that had like 10 songwriting credits on it. And if you count like a producer that's tuned a kick drum as a songwriter, and you know what I mean? That's kind of more the thing I think that you're alluding to there. But I still think, there's definitely, Can't Get You Out of My Head by Kylie Minogue was a finished thing. That was a thing written by a person with a melody and chords, and then it was produced. So there are many ways to skin a cat. That was for your benefit, Dave.
Nelson does not believe that. He is not liking that statement.
Sorry.
He didn't know, but I just got it down.
But if I just very briefly show a snippet of something else that came together in a completely different way, like just 10 seconds of the other track that we're working on. My brother had an idea that he has a song. It's complete. It's finished. He's got guitars. He's got chords and melody. He's done a bit of sound playing with this. But he's like, I can't do drums. It's a bit like, the Steve Winch thing. Let's see if I can find it. And if I turned it up and actually shared sound, you could hear it. But this is an example of something very, very quickly. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but it's an example of something which had chords and melody only, really, plus some keyboard ideas. Let me do this again. Oh no, it should just work, shouldn't it? Come on. You hear that?
Yep.
Yeah. So this is basically chords and melody. That's it. The drums you can hear are all added afterwards. Okay, if you're guitar overdubs, rhythm guitar, fine, but nothing drastic, production-wise anyway. And all of that is layered on later, but fundamentally the song is just chords and melody, which is what it started off as. Where's the vocal? I've got the wrong one.
When the night is gone and the good times fade away, when the crowds and neon signs pave the way,
etc., etc. There might be a tiny little bit too much reverb on that snare drum, but you get the point. Like that was just a song, and then my brother's like, "Can you do something that makes it sound big and makes it sound cool? Can you make it suggest some things to kind of create a sonic mood, which is reminiscent of these other things?" It's like, yeah. So we worked on that like as a separate bit.
I certainly think from our experience in the studio, that's what the engineer, the producer really kind of adds value, because we've put down the kind of raw instrumentation, if you like, and then that's when they've gone, well, actually, why don't we pan it left to right, or just do something that sounds a little bit different to just the noise that's come out of your instrument, because they give it that extra dynamic. And that's where the sound engineer, the producer, the guy who brings in the coffee and goes, well, why don't you do it this way? And you kind of go, oh, you know what, we hadn't thought of that, because sometimes you get so immersed in this is how I think it should be, that actually bringing in those kind of different influences is helps it evolve, helps it grow. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And if it doesn't work, and with the technology we've got today, you just go delete. There you go. That didn't take too long to do. You haven't gone right. We need to buy another tape. Because we've overdubbed that too many times now. But yeah, it's some interesting sounds there.
Yeah, I'm trying to work towards being less precious about song ideas. I think I'm so precious about songs because I feel like I don't write very many of them. So when it comes and it has a kind of form and it has emphasis added by production, and like that's the song, it's one thing, it's one product, and I'd really like to get away from that and start going, okay, these are songs and these are all the different ways you could do them, and I'm trying to make myself do that and force myself to come up with some different ways of doing the same thing. Because otherwise, I think it's going to forever be some sort of barrier.
Well,
So there's a lot of worth in.
Do you think that your technical expertise forces you or persuades you that you want to add more production to it? And rather than, maybe keeping it simple at times.
It's quite possible. Yeah, it's quite possible. I do try and impose some constraints. So if I'm writing for one project, which I call Paper Trails, I'll imagine it's just a 5-piece rock band. It's like you cannot, you're not allowed to use any synth sound. You're not allowed to use electronic drums. You're not allowed to use anything other than instruments that were commercially available before 1975. That would be so that would be electric piano and Wurlitzer, and maybe at a push something that's a monophonic synth sound, like maybe like an early Moogie thing. If you those are the rules, and you can't just overdub and overdub and overdub. That's cheating. They didn't have that many tracks back then.
Yeah, it's definitely something in our project that's driven us, is to go, we might be able to write and record and release something, but the essence of what we do is playing live. So if we can't recreate that live, it becomes a very different experience for us as the musicians playing it, but also for our audience. Yeah. Sometimes it works really, really well, because sometimes you hear just a different interpretation of a song, which is pretty cool, particularly when the original artist reimagines that song and comes out with a completely different version. You go, wow, that's you sat there going, I recognise that. Where do I know that from? And then you twig, this was a fast track before, and now it's been reimagined as a slow track, or a completely different genre. That's really where music's quite dynamic, because it's not written once and that's it. It's cast in stone. I think for us being essentially a kind of mod rock band, I guess, we wanted to capture something that we can recreate live, but what you can do in the studio is just put those extra little nuances in that just help to just lift it that little bit. And there are bits of perhaps echo or an extra layer of something. It might even be one little element of I think on your tracks there you had it called Stupid Guitar, 1 through to 49 or something, but you will have that extra little piece where you go, we can just do that because the studio allows you to do it. And I think it depends on what's the output. Is the output to be something for people to listen to? You can go further than if it's something that perhaps you want to perform, because when you're performing you can't go, right, we need that extra guitarist to do just that one twiddly little bit, or we need that keyboard just hit that one note there at the right time. So
that euphonium.
Yeah, exactly.
Session euphonium player just with half a song. This is a project which I try to categorize it as kind of something which I never expect to possibly be playable live. And it has to follow certain rules. It has to be a pop song. It has to have period accurate-ish, plausible. Your memory of it has to kind of fit with it, even though actually they didn't really, I don't know, they didn't process drums quite like that, or they didn't have that particular set, like whatever it happens to be. But it has to be reminiscent. It has to kind of go, yeah, I can see that's a pastiche thing. So again, that stops you from going nuts with just producing and producing and producing. But I suppose, to your point, Dave, within this, I could probably just legitimately layer about 8 guitars if I wanted to and still be within the constraints. And I don't think it would add very much, although it will be past an afternoon, pass an afternoon and I listen to it the next day and go, I don't really think I should have bothered with that.
I actually think it's neat that you've shown a very good example of us, of what a lot of us are kind of doing right now with people when we collaborate. And they're just little snippets of things. And the more we get used to kind of putting things, even just rough ideas, into technology, the easier they are to kind of transform. If I send somebody a clean vocal line, they can put it in whatever sort of resonating space they want. They can do Like they can pitch modify it if they need to. Well, it's me. They wouldn't have to.
They wouldn't need to,
Kidding,
Emma.
I'm kidding.
Not at all.
But it's like it expands the doors so much more than, I was listening to this thing the other day, and it was talking about the guy who was working on, he did a couple of albums with the Beatles, and he did some stuff with David Bowie, and he said that Bowie, he would always do just like one take. Everything was just like, that was it. And the rest of us, we need to kind of build up on things, but he's had this master creation. By the time he's in the studio, it's that. But how do we get these ideas about? And even in the last time I wrote a song, I was actually in Italy. It was at Deb's workshop, the Jed Friedman thing. And even my collaborator and I found them the other day. I have about 25 voice memos from the course of the weekend. 2.5 days with them in studio where we figured out the structure of the song and how it needed to go. And it's great to have those ideas. In fact, the guy that I was doing a studio session with the other day who needed like my coaching, that's exactly how he works all the time. I know that some of the other ones of us, those of us who are pretty much their own band, I'm kind of in the field of what Christian was saying. Like I'm on the fence, because sometimes I want to absolutely be able to recreate every single thing that you're hearing. Not that I have anything that's like pre-recorded, but I'm talking about even in my sets. So sometimes I will just jazz those up. But technology's helped me add in a bunch of things I wouldn't normally. I don't have to have a ton of instruments. I just change the sound settings on my Rolly, and it does anything that I want. And I have a looper now, so it can do things. So I can have really basic drums. You drummers would probably spit on the ground where my basic beats walk. But, just it adds that kind of texture that I need to enhance what I'm doing to perform. And I think that I also agree with that statement of kind of just, I've literally just lost my train of thought. Sorry. I had a couple of thoughts in there, but they're I'm going to yield the floor to somebody else because I just forgot what I was saying.
They'll come back.
Maybe. I am getting old.
My favorite artist is a band that, the whole point of them is the live performance. And they don't do any trickery. They don't do any this and the other. Their own studio is one where they've pulled out the computer and they've replaced it with a tape machine. I don't know if they actually pulled out the computer entirely, but that is their way of working. And, you watch videos of them on YouTube, and just them in a room, all of them just together, sound amazing with no special effects, nothing else going on. They sound fantastic because they're pros. And I think that there's a place for that as much as there's a place for something that's kind of a singer and a bunch of electronic musicians behind them as well. That's what's great. I mean, my mate, I've got a mate who's I talk about music a lot with, and I said to him, like, okay, do you remember being at school and everyone was kind of like, oh, you like these bands or you like this thing? And it was all very tribal. Mm-hmm. And that was definitely the case when I was at school. What about you? And it's like, and he's he's a little bit younger than me, like 5 years younger. It's like, I know what you mean, but less so. Now music is basically when you get all of the different Play-Doh colors and you shove them through the big squeezy and you press it down and everything that comes out is kind of what music is now, because it's so available. And because my theory is that younger people express their taste and individuality through their social media platforms, not through the band that's on the hoodie anymore. So they don't care, and they're just kind of, I'm connecting with people in a different way. The music doesn't need to define me, or at least doesn't outwardly need to portray who I think I am at that particular moment as an angsty teenager. So I think that's that, plus the fact that Spotify lets you just literally have any music, that's pretty much any music that's ever been recorded, at your fingertips. Suddenly you've got a space for loads of different things, and you don't have to say, oh, that's better than that, or that's better than that, so that's got more worth than that. I mean, there is a bit of that can probably still happen, but rock music, is it better than pop music? I don't know. What do you mean by better? I mean, I don't know, but
You-
define your terms.
Yeah. Do you think it's more of a? I mean, it sounds very old, but I just ask you as a question: do you think it's more of a wallpaper now?
It's
than
no
it
more of a
was?
war. No, I don't think so.
You
I
don't?
think no. If you read essays written in the sort of 1930s, 40s by, this goes back to my degree. You know, people like Theodore Adorno. I think it was quite sort of well-known philosopher at the time. He describes popular music as basically being the soundtrack to your life, made up of bits, you know, interchangeable cogs, and then you can change one verse for another, and it's basically the same. And you know, you can keep regurgitating these very derivative ideas. Six Music did a on April the 1st. It started off as a joke, but became so popular that everyone loved it. They did Six Music Goes Pop, and they just played pop hits all day, which of course is, you listen to Six Music, you know that is not really their bit. It was fantastic, and the thing it was about it is that although those are kind of slightly ephemeral, very fleeting songs, because they're only 3 minutes long, you know, they're like a cheesecake, you know, they're definitely not a main course. They're like a nice, sweet little thing. But what people were saying was like, I have so many memories of this song. You know, I have so many associations. This was on at the school disco in 19, whenever it was. And it was just, so is that wallpaper?
Well, I think
It's hard to
thing
say.
I think it's both, because David, I see, okay, Instagram, I have this like skate thing that I do, and a lot of the things that I see, they're reposts from things like TikTok, and even on Instagram you can only post up to like a minute of a video on a story. So if people put music into that, it's 15 seconds on TikTok to up to a minute on Instagram of any given piece of music. So it has essentially become like a fancy wallpaper to something. The same way that on Facebook, you could put like your favorite song on there so people could hear it when they visited your profile. But it's like, we're not engaging as much because it is like, oh, I like this song. You know, I mean, if you think about, there's a song called Roses, and it's like a dance hit. And I heard it come up because I listened to a couple of artists that are on the same label. And I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. And all of a sudden I heard it on a commercial. And it's just the kind of chorus. There isn't really a chorus in dance music, but it is like this one section.
The hook, right?
Yeah. And like everyone's going to hear that hook and they're going to like remember that commercial or something. And that's what music is now. And it is very hard to engage people by getting music that has this kind of punchy hook that captures you, but it is still there. It's just not as mainstream. Like, I religiously follow Nothing But Thieves because I think, for one, they're brilliant songwriters, and two, they're amazing musicians. They're all really good at what they do. And like, throughout lockdown, they released an album. They did a couple of really great live streams. They're ready to tour this. In fact, I have tickets to go and see them. And the really great thing is, like, I can listen to the album from start to finish, and I enjoy that as a listener. It's about trying to captivate an audience long enough with the music that we're doing, because everything is so fleeting nowadays. It's like 30 seconds in, if I don't like it, I'm going to swipe left. Swipe left, swipe left. And like, is that good for us? No, but like, that's why I perform, because you can't swipe left on me at the pub, because I've got a microphone and I'm paid to be here for an hour and a half. My name is on the marquee. You can come back another night, you know? And that's really nice, because then I'm like, okay, my work is seen, and it's, you know, but other people, they'd like to get themselves out there. They want to like write that song. They want to produce a lot of, I think, especially when you get into music production, it is easier to get things going. You know, I mean, I don't mean to diminish what Billie Eilish has done at all, but Billie Eilish writes with her brother. Now, I was learning a couple of songs with some students a couple years ago, and I noticed that like 3 or 4 of them, all in the same key, they go between G minor and D minor. A few of them use sevenths, and they kind of alternate in things. And it kind of has the same sort of melody line that only really does this a little bit, and then the chorus goes up to here and it does a little bit of this, and then it comes back down to here and it doesn't really move. And the thing is, that's that is perfect for a dance song. That's what that's, I mean,
Is that Billie Eilish specifically, or is that
oh yeah. Oh, that was definitely.
she's just released a touring poster that says one song, 3 hours, no refunds.
Pretty much that, yeah. I actually admire what she does because she's kind of just done her own thing. You know, she's definitely venturing into new things, but she started music when she was really young. And again, she had the influence of somebody else to kind of help structure what she was doing. And now she can kind of make these thoughts and feelings. And she's starting to see what her instrument can actually do. You know, this is why we choose to work with people and musicians who are better at that instrument than like I would never try to play guitar on a track of mine. I just can't express it that way. You know, I am a singer. I'm a singer first and foremost. And now that she's had that kind of like life experience, I think that we can see the songs developing that way. But I mean, it doesn't take, it just takes a little bit of a spark to kind of get something going. And as long as you have a hook that's enough, you know, if you think this gets brought up in the Jed Friedman workshops all the time. I want to know what love is. I want you to show me.
Classic.
Now, like, who the hell else can tell you any of the other bits of that song? I can sing that bit. Can I sing any of the rest of it? Not a chance. Somebody could have a gun to my head and I would be dead. Seriously, like that. It just, I don't know.
A
But
really good
that's all
point.
and it's been used time and time again. Now, are we all meant to be that moment in time? No. That's okay. I write really wordy songs that have long stories to them and they're in complex time signatures. But nothing's going to stop me from doing that because, again, it goes back to what I feel and what I want to come out, you know? I've gone off on a bit of a tangent.
Out and out pop, though, I think, I think just look at any top 40 from any decade, most of it's dross. Like in terms of what you would call, well, actually, no, in terms of pop generally, most of it is not particularly remarkable. In terms of music, is it interesting? I don't know. There's a fleeting period between around, I reckon, 1966 and 1975, where art rock was incredibly fashionable. And I think a lot of people just sort of base their kind of idea of like, okay, music that's good sits in these concept albums, the Beatles and various other bits and pieces. But like all the Beatles early stuff, I mean, even McCartney kind of disowns that as a little bit of kind of, yeah, they were just cheesy love songs. And we tried to write the best cheesy love song we could. And it had to be 2 minutes long because it had to be quick. It was just over. You had to churn them out. And even the Beatles, they're like, oh yes, but Abbey Road. And yeah, but they started making this pop stuff. They were very good at it, but it was just songwriting machine, let's borrow a bit of Little Richard, let's borrow something else. So I think, what do I think? My point is that I think pop music has always been a bit wallpapery. And then what you were talking about, like Nothing But Thieves, they're not a popular band. I mean, they're a popular band, but they're not, they're not Beyonce, they're not at that kind of level. And there are so many others that diversify this. You can find interesting stuff, but they're just not as commercial.
What I always kind of aimed for in life, if I wanted to be like a famous musician, I want the right people to know my name. And a lot more people know Beyonce's name, but like, okay, Nothing But Thieves, they're in Rolling Stone for a reason. People have named, like Dom, the guitarist, like this decade's guitarist. And Connor Mason is like literally the voice of this decade as well. And so to have these kind of prolific things, and they're writing about whatever the hell they want to. I mean, in fact, I love watching their models of things. They did a whole bunch of gigs from home because they had to rehearse anyway. So they just hooked it up the same way that we are here and just streamed it to everyone. Like, hey, watch it. And who was there? Me. I don't usually buy into that kind of stuff. And quite literally, I watched all 3 of the live streams that they did. It was essentially the same gig, but even that wasn't the same thing. And that's what I love. Every single time that I've seen them, the 2 times I saw them live, it was a week apart. One in Berlin, one here at Ali Pali in London. And both of those shows, one had close to 1,000 people in one of the coolest venues I think I've ever been to. And Ali Pali holds like what, 12, 14,000 people. I actually loved the smaller one, but it was like amazing to see this. And again, it's that transference of, can I do this? Can I replicate this in some capacity? And even when they would take some songs and make them acoustic versions, we all still felt that energy, and we're all still singing the same song along. And even though it doesn't have, the vocal samples of these, like there's one song that has a couple of like whoop 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 whoop, and like Connor Mason will sing the first one and the audience does the echoes. It's really neat because you've put that in the album. It has that essence, and we as an audience carry that along during the performance. And I think that kind of notoriety, when people can talk about that experience, like some of my favorite artists, who the hell knows Kimbra?
For me, but me only thanks to you, in fairness.
and that's pretty much the story of every single person that I ask. She's
amazing.
To me, one of the best musicians. I follow her. I want to follow her. I've paid extortionate amounts of money to go and see her because of what she brings to the table. She reimagines her music. She does it with 2 instrumentalists, or she's a one-woman band. She can produce it, she can write it, she explores in things, yet still looks at music from other eras. I mean, she studied jazz, looking to things that help build things. When you talk, Michael, you were talking about in music production, a lot of people get stuck in an 8-bar loop because they don't know where to go. I'm not the best at music theory, but my classical degree sure as hell taught me how to progress with chords, and like what are some really basic ways to kind of take this and what my ears should be listening to. And so, it's like I do fully believe that everything needs to be a mixture of the two worlds, digital and analog, the past and the present, where we are now, because that's what the future is. I mean, I'm constantly saying to people all the time, can you imagine what Mozart would do with a Rolly synthesizer? Can you imagine what Beethoven would do if he had, electronic drums to make sound instead of just timpani? And everyone in the classical world is like, no, we can't listen to these bastardized instruments and stuff. And I'm like, you are literally missing out on the absolute point. We need to be innovators of what we do. And even if we're not making the wheel a new thing, we can make our own version of the wheel that works for us. Because I mean, like Martin, for example, his music is like quite folky, quite traditional instruments that we're talking about and using. There's not like, heavy saw synth and like the 808, all this stuff. Does that mean that he can't be innovative in what he does? No, absolutely not. Because quite literally, he's more innovative than I in the fact that he's recorded an entire album at his house.
Might not be any good though.
Well, all of that. I mean, people would say the same shit about me. I say the same shit about Taylor Swift. Like,
yes.
Come on.
People don't agree, but you are right.
I know.
Nicer
Well,
house.
I've got some people that agree with me. It's fine. We don't have an organization. Don't worry. Sorry, Taylor Swift. Sorry, I'll empower women. It's all right.
I'll tell you what, though. I stay very quiet during those conversations about the 8-bar loop stuff, because we're forever talking about the idea that how do we get people sort of, they're stuck here and they're doing this and they've got that, and I'm just like, the answer is that they should go and learn some music theory, or go and develop their ear, or develop their skill level. The answer is not in the technology. That's not a very helpful thing to say at a product design meeting, but it's like these people are on a journey which maybe we could be part of, I don't know, but it's about developing, and maybe what's actually be great is some sort of mentoring. How on earth would you design that into a product? Don't know, but that is what you want. You want to learn from somebody, you want to learn from somebody else, you want to have ideas you've not thought of before, and some sort of I don't know, inspiration that comes from somewhere, and that's just a problem that you can't solve, you know, to the point where it's just like, oh, we could provide them with more pre-made loops. It's like, how is that more creative
But that's why I've
than,
got
you
this
know what I
group
mean?
happening. That's why we do this exact
Well,
thing.
indeed.
Because every single person that has come to me to ask for this sort of thing, I say, listen, we need to talk about the collaborative efforts that happen within music. And it's not about me trying to do it on my own, it's about us trying to do it together. And sometimes you might just need me as ears in your studio. I mean, that is what I do. I didn't help this person out because I'm a singer, I helped them out because I have ears that can
Yeah.
can hear something, and I have listened to enough like popular music in the genre that he's trying to make this, that I can say like, right, you need to hit this here, and what about trying this with the vocal line, you know? Now, not everyone is so lucky to be like, right, I can just book a session with you, Emma, you know, but like that's why I like to open these conversations, because sometimes it is, you know, hey, can we work on this project together? Or, you know, I might need somebody else's ears on something. And it's important for us to know who we can talk to and who we can like refer to in these sorts of things. There definitely needs to be more sort of mentorship and I think guidance when it comes to especially that kind of recording process and kind of getting things going on that side, because obviously having been a voice teacher there is obviously tuition on that side of things. There is a person that's already in state there, but I mean, from having recorded an album with a band in a studio that was similar to what Tad Studios is like. It was not at all, but it was like that. They made this own and they were doing this for us. I didn't really know them. We walked in and we used them for their services. There wasn't anyone there that I could kind of trust to listen to that. The sound engineer is like, right, I'll take as many takes as you need. We'll do what we can with it afterwards. And to have somebody be like, okay, that was great. That really worked. That jives, you know. Or try that one again. Try it with, like, try going off the beat or something. And unfortunately, a lot of us don't really get the opportunity until something's kind of almost done before we get other people in on the project. And at that point, you do become really quite precious, because if I've just spent, you know, 5 grand and 10 weeks in the studio and I've done this track and you're like, actually, that drum is just terrible. Oh, well, shit. Now I have to start all over again. Not all over, you know, but
Well,
there's
if
more.
you're Metallica, release it anyway.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're Emma Dupé, release it anyway.
Oh no, that's not quite what I meant.
Well, I mean, that because that's sort of me, but that's why in the beginning process of things, I get people involved. Help me with this so that I don't get too far down the line and then I'm too precious about it. You know, I have people around me that are working on all sorts of different projects within music. Some of them, you know, they're just doing performing of covers of people's music and stuff. And even that, having somebody watch you and listen to your version of it and say like, actually that was a really, really good swing. You're going in the right direction with that. Or like, oh, you chose to make Black Hole Sun into like a experimental jazz thing. No, nobody wants to listen to that. You know?
I'm curious as to how it would sound though.
Well, I was like, actually, that probably doesn't. That probably sounds like the right direction. You know, I don't know. I was trying to think of two extremes, and it did not come out. You know, but I mean, like I know that David has done that with me before, but we are a community where we can share these things amongst ourselves within the group. We can open up chatting discussions. I know that Facebook is not the easiest forum, but that's why I also wanted to. Within the next couple of months, depending on what happens with our lockdown guidelines, to be able to host this closed mic night so that you guys can share ideas with each other. Obviously, that's a little bit more performance based, but by the sounds of it, you guys kind of have stuff that's ready to be there. And there are other members of the group that are kind of ready for that as well. Yeah. I'm conscious of time, guys. Is there anything else that you guys would like to chat, discuss, anything?
Nothing specific. I'm very curious as to how a decent female singer would sound on this track, though, Emma.
Just walked out.
Ah.
You're like, Emma, while you're at it.
Yeah.
Well, listen, the thing is, send the project over. That's what things are always about, you know, and for me, I know that if I can't do things, if things are out of my grasp, whether it's time-wise, instrument-wise, there's a pool of people that we can call upon. We can find people that, you know, can work on these projects with us, which is great. I know that every single one of us, having been in music, knows other musicians just by chance of time in the field, you know, and even if it's knowing, you know, down the line, oh, actually, you need somebody who plays bagpipes. There's someone in my village who does that. We hear him every day. That sort of stuff. And I mean, I know that some of you guys have asked me, like, oh, do you know someone who plays this and this? And I'm like, no, not really, not yet. But that's the thing.
I need a tenor sax.
No. Well, David is learning the saxophone, so good on you guys. Just introduced you all there. Yeah, I mean, sorry. Anything else? I kind of just took over the conversation again.
I got nothing else today.
No?
No, very interesting. In fact, I thought good evening, actually.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been nice to meet you three guys as well. Met Emma briefly, say last year at the Bicester Festival event. So thank you very much, and I'll join you again next time. Absolutely, it's been a really interesting chat and great to meet some like-minded, passionate individuals as well.
Yeah,
it's great to have you along, and it's tell all your friends as well, because it is great that, you know, it's such kind of we've got such diverse kind of backgrounds, and I think that's something that's you know, a real boost, because it means that we kind of get to talk with people who are not immediately within the same kind of area necessarily, and that's kind of a healthy thing. Good for all of us.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, thank you for your time this evening. It's been great.
So, for next month's meeting, I know that there were a couple of people who said they couldn't make it because they're doing things today. We might be changing the evening depending on, so check the page, the Evolving Musicians Network page, because I'm going to make a poll to see what day actually suits better. And if we have to kind of move them around every month, that's okay. I don't really mind. And I want to encourage each of you guys to, yes, invite a friend. Invite a friend. See if anyone can come.
I'm gonna have to make some friends.
Well, yeah, I know, right? Me too, because you guys are all here. But see if you can get somebody to come along. These meetings, you can see they can tend to run a little bit long, but if we have a bit of a plan, we can kind of stick to it. We haven't had as much participation recently, but I think it's because we're all kind of getting busy with the world opening back up.
That's fair, yeah.
But we have a couple of discussion spots, and we'll pick a couple of things and we'll just open it up to the group to talk about, kind of similar in what we did. I like to still introduce and chat with every new member so that you guys can just get to know us and feel comfortable. These meetings are really great. They're run only by donation. If you feel like you'd like to help support that, that's totally fine. But again, it's not mandatory, because I think the most important thing about this is that we just get together. We talk about our musical projects, find new and fun things for us for the future. And yes, upcoming, we will have our closed mic night. If you guys can think of any sort of project or goal that you would like to work on as a group or anything like that, please do share, because I think it's the more that we can engage with each other and reach out, especially to those people who might not have come to a meeting yet, would be really great. I know that I do tend to find them out and about in the world as a musician and try to connect with them, which is, again, hopefully how you'll start to see a few more new faces along the way. Would anybody like to say anything? Do you have anything that, any other questions or things that you'd like to bring up before we sign off for the evening?
No, nothing else for me.
All right. Well, dudes, I can say that now because Deb's not here. We miss you, Deb. Her phone died, so bye, Deb. Dudes, it was very lovely meeting with you guys, and to anyone else who's watching this on YouTube later, thanks for tuning in. And yeah, as I said, just keep checking the Facebook group. We will try to keep things maintained. Share any musical projects you've been working on, and the group will comment accordingly. So yeah. With that, I hope you all have a wonderful start to your week, no matter what the weather brings us. And yeah, I'll see you guys next month, hopefully.
Or sooner.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
See ya.